once again with your pre-jump podcast week 25. On the desk we've got Rob, TechFour. How's it going, guys?
How we doing?
Doing
I
pretty
mean,
solid.
personally, I'm doing all right. Having a good night. Excited to talk about some of these tiers.
For sure, for sure. Well, for anybody tuning in, I just want to point out this nice little box in the bottom right. Used to have a picture in it. Now we've got another sexy man sitting here joining us for the four of us, Mr. HUD. HUD, how are you doing, Mr. Producer? Ooh.
Everybody's stuff set up but his own. Oh my goodness.
Rookie.
Okay.
Rookie
Okay,
mistake.
we're
Oh my
good now.
goodness.
We're good now. I'm doing
How about
great,
you
especially
develop some
now.
skills?
Especially now that my microphone is on, we're doing fantastic. Looking forward to getting into this, hoping that all the buttons that I have to push should do exactly what they want or what I want them to do, and none of the things that I don't. So let's just go ahead.
For sure, for sure. Well, for those of you who are tuning in, we're going to kick us right into the first segment, really. We're going to get into our top 5 breakdown by tier, starting us off with Premier. Get us kicked off here in first place, sitting squarely at 40-12. We've got the Crooked Capos. In second at 36-16, we've got the Hurricanes. Tied for third, Interstellar and Tarbage Grucks, 34-18. And then in fifth place, Gummy Bears, 31-21. My man, it looks like we've got our clear cut like best team. They've been sitting there number one, fellas. Is there anybody you pick to be your potential champion here outside of the Crooked Capos?
I mean, I'll jump in. The Hurricanes kind of been impressing me all season. I've had them kind of near the top or right at the top. I think every week except maybe week 1 in my power rankings. With that said, I mean, obviously the Crooked Capos are one of the very few teams in the league that have broken 40 wins already. But if there's anybody there, I'd shout out Hurricanes.
I would say so. You have them. They're 14-6 in their last 5, right? And so what that tells me is they started out way better than everyone else, and now they have half of their wins in their last, or half their losses in their last 20 games, right? So 14-6 is great, but you have 4 teams right behind them at 13-7, and one more right at 12-8. So yeah, it's cool that they got this lead, but I think it was from early season advantages, and some of these teams have kind of caught up, right? They haven't overtaken them per se, and that's why you still see the Crooked Capos up top and with sole possession 4 games ahead of everyone else. But I don't think it's by as much as it seems anymore.
I'll jump in
Fair
here and
enough.
say you're right. And if you look at their last games, the last time they have 4-0'd was October 2nd. But the teams they have played have been very good. So they 3-1 Viperfish, 3-1 Mengpo, 3-1 Fairies, 3-1 Hurricanes, 2-2 Gummy Bears. So that might be a team to look at, and then 3-1 Capybaras.
Yeah, they're consistently getting the wins, but it's not at the level of dominance that we were seeing before. I mean, with that, seems to kind of wrap
Hey.
up the top 5 there.
True. Well, my man, do you want to take us into your tier in more ways than one right now, my man?
Man, if you had let me finish talking, that's exactly what I was doing. Anyway, we skipped it.
I
That's
skipped it. I
on
clicked
the
veteran.
screen.
Hey, I can read.
No, don't worry.
How?
Anyway, in sole
Just
possession
let
of
Boss
first
host.
place, you have the roster that I'm on. Woo, go Eggplants at 35-17. Right behind them, you have a 2-way tie between the Tempests and the Heinous Henchmen. 1 game back at 34-18, and then you have a 5-game drop off into a 3-way tie between the Feta Forgers, Care Bears, and Chimeras at 29-23. And you've seen it before, and it's stayed kind of the same. You have 3 teams at the top by 5+ games, each of them.
And I don't have a whole lot for this tier, really, because we're going to be getting obviously much further into it. I do want to shout out, it's always a great time to get hot right before the playoffs. And Rob, you guys look to be doing just that. I mean, it just seems to be that timing, and hopefully it'll parlay pretty well into the
Yeah.
playoffs.
We got some some interesting talking points about that coming up. So I think
All right, all
Tech, if
right.
you want to scoot us into elite before we get, because I don't know, that's what the deep dive is for, right? We're gonna break a lot of this down very shortly.
Oh,
Sure.
for sure.
So we'll jump right into elite. Still in first place, have been for a while. At 40-12 is the Pixel Picassos. At 34-18, we have a tie between Midnight and Azathoth. And then at 33-19, we have a tie between the Ghastly Goombas and the Cyclones.
I mean, 6 games up on everybody else. That's a fairly sizable lead, especially in a tier this large, right? If you see that in Master, if you see that in Prem, if you see that in Ami or Contender, right? One of these smaller tiers, it kind of makes sense, right? The distribution, there can be that gap. But 6 games already ahead of second place. Pixel Picassos are putting in a lot of work.
So this is a small error on mine. I jumped the gun and made this this graphic like right before the match day where they actually played on stream. So I actually did it like after the regular matches and forgot about them on stream. Need for Speed is currently sitting at 35-17. Uh, so they're not that much closer. It's still a 5-game gap, but I just want to
What?
point out my error there.
No, you're looking at Need for Speed's Vet.
Are we? Oh my goodness! I just
Yeah,
jumped
we're
the
talking
gun.
about
Never mind.
elite.
Forget me, my man. Ignore what I'm doing.
Too funny. Too
Oh
funny.
God.
Anyway, yeah, Pixel Picasso's taking that top spot, having a full team of production, have for the entire season, right? Performing at a very high level, tied for the best record over the last 5 match days with an interesting team, right? You have the Knights making a huge push, 30-22, but they're 16-4 in their last 20. So I'm curious to see if they're going to continue that or if they fizzle out, right? It could be some easy scheduling, or it could be them getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to kind of track there. Knights, who knows? I mean, right now they are the top team that is not winning a division. They're in that playoff spot, but they easily could take their division within the next
Yeah,
couple days.
1 game back as well, so they are making that push for it. Pardon me.
Well, and we'll be able to get further into this later on in the season once we get to our elite deep dive. But I think this is probably a good spot if we can roll into the vets top 5, where I've actually already tried talking about the graphic.
You just got so excited.
Oh, 100%, man. I'm looking forward to this tier next season. Looking at number 1, Sea Devils, sitting at 40-12. Second place, Need for Speed, 35-17. Then you've got Blues, Possessed, and Makos, all at 34-18.
I mean, I don't know. Again, right? You see that 40-win barrier being broken, and at this point, if you've had that consistent level of winning, you are kind of making a statement about, hey, we're here not just for the regular season, but we're going to be competing as we go into playoffs. And Sea Devils making a claim for that top spot right now by 5 whole games, right? Very threatening, asserting their authority on the tier for the most part.
Yeah, other one I'd shout out is Makos, 15-5 over their last 5. Coming from mid pack to jump into these top 5.
Worth noting that they're the only other team besides the Sea Devils in first that are over 13-7 in their last 20. So you're seeing a lot of teams being very even throughout this tier, right? You got 5 teams within 2 games of each other for second and sixth. So I don't know. It's gonna be very close to the top, and you're gonna see a lot of these seeds probably start to roll over. Even these divisions are very tight for the most part.
For sure, for sure. Well, my man, Rob, do you want to take
Yes,
us right
sir.
on into Rival?
I'd love to. Straight into another garden team that we get to talk about, the Carrots, in
Oh,
sole
brother.
possession of first place at 36-16. You're the one who asked me to take him, man. Right behind them, you have the Matza Marauders, who, interestingly enough, same division. So top 2 teams, same division, 35-17, 2 games back. You have Cursed at 33-19, and then a 3-way tie for 4th, 5th, and 6th. with the Blizzards, Vikings, and Werewolves all at 32 and 20 respectively. So no 40-win team in this tier. You're seeing a lot more parity towards the top. Not even as many 34, 35-win teams. This is a really, really tight tier all the way through. One match day separating 12th and 3rd.
Well, and I think the interesting thing as well is you're seeing some people who used to be at the top, like Vikings for a long time, were sitting towards the top of that, top five stretch, but now they're 7-13 in the back five. So they are really starting to hit a struggle point in the season, and we're going to potentially see them maybe look for some sort of rotational change or some sort of playstyle change. But they're going to have to make something to at least have a more viable option in the playoffs.
And if we're talking about the last 5 records, we cannot look past the Werewolves, who are 18 and 2 in their last 5, right? 32 and 20 on the season. So started out 14 and 18, and since then, I don't know if any roster changes were made. We'll get into this eventually, probably next week, or I think we do a rival deep dive at that point. But 18 and 2 in your last 20 is crazy. I think that's without looking through all of them, I believe that's the best in RSC at the moment, and that
It's
does
tied
not.
with one other.
I wonder. Okay. You would. I wonder who it is. I'm sure we'll get to them shortly.
Oh, brother.
But 18 and 2 is not anything to scoff at, right? Even if they don't have the craziest record right now, they're what, 5, 6 games back. That is a team to be worried about as we approach playoffs.
Uwaji in
Fair,
chat
fair.
saying that they did make a quote unquote
Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
roster change.
We're gonna have to figure out what that is. If Logi, you'd like to elaborate a little bit. I could just look at.
We could probably just look at transaction announcements while we roll into probably what's the most interesting tier. Tech, do you want to roll us in the Chally?
Yeah, love this tier. Tied at number 1, we have at 39 and 19, we have Slice Slice Baby and Abyss. In 3rd place at 38 and 14, we have Penne Patrol. 4th place, 37 and 15, we have the Toucans. And at 35 and 17, we have the Slow Starfish. I like this.
This is really interesting. There's a bunch of teams up there above 35 wins, and you have a big gap between 31 and 34. And there's a pretty decent drop off from 30 to 26 pretty quickly. So it's almost like the teams are separated not individually but as groups in a lot of different groups, a lot of tiers within the tier here, some we don't usually see.
For sure, for sure. And I have been looking forward to this tier all week because there's just so much interesting stuff going on. And as much as I want to really break it down and just get into the nitty gritty of it, I know we're going to really peel back those layers once we get into that deep dive. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to keep us rolling. We're going to get right in the prospect.
Go for it.
Looking in first place, your residential surprise. We've got Spaghetti Scouts sitting in first. They've actually clinched up at 35 and 17. Darkness, Pepperoni Pizza tied for second, sitting at 34 and 18, and then tied for fourth. You've got Whiskey Business and Sparks sitting at 32 and 20. And fellas, I really, really thought Sparks were going to have that crown by their name by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, not to take anything away, Spaghetti Scouts, I will call them frauds again because someone
Oh
did
my
ask in
goodness.
chat. Only because someone asked in chat. But I will say, and realistically, like, not to take anything away from them, their record's fantastic. But I do think they had a little bit of easier record in the last couple match days than the Sparks did, and that was able to kind of hold them right above, or really not even hold them above. It kind of held Sparks back a little bit.
I mean, they did.
No,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
So, right. Well, you mentioned that you thought the Sparks had this, right? They still very well may, but it's a back-to-back getting 1-3'd for them this week. Monday and Wednesday, they lose both of those series. So maybe it was a little bit of no one had seen this team and had a chance to figure out how they play, and they might just be getting hard countered immediately. And also worth noting, Spaghetti Scouts have the worst record in the last 20 among the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, right? So, and it's by multiple games to every other team in the top 5. So I think they are getting carried a little bit by their early season success, but I mean, they ended with this number 1 spot, and I mean, they clearly earned it. There's one more match day, right? But they're
No.
at least no.
Nope. Prospect is all wrapped up. That's why they get that nice, beautiful crown next to their name.
Oh yeah, if you look at the schedule, okay. I didn't know
They
the
are
schedule and reporting
clinched.
screen had playoffs on it. Actually, that's kind of cool. Anyways, yeah. So yeah, then it's done, and they have that number 1 spot. That's very impressive. All credit to them, but they got there a little bit less stable than some of these other teams in the playoffs, and so we'll see exactly how that carries over.
Fair enough. Fair
Oh,
enough, my
boy.
man.
Is it me taking us into contender?
I mean, it's either you or Tech. You guys can fight for it if you want.
No, I got
but-
it. I got it. So in second place, you have Gluttony at 36 and 16. In third place, you have the Wisps at 32 and 20. In fourth place, you have the Pastry Pioneers at 30 and 22. And there's actually a tie for fifth with Cheese Pizza and the Gallery Guild at 28 and 24. So really
I just wanna
interesting
point out-
second through sixth place that we have here. Very tight tier overall. Nobody
Oh,
really
man.
separating themselves. And as we've seen for the second straight tier, Dagon is running away with it. 18 and 2 in their last 20.
So I'm gonna throw this out there because this is like would be the coolest thing. This is like the cool dad moment.
Yeah.
Is if they go 2 and 2, Dagon would tie last season Dagon's
Dude,
win record.
no way.
3 and 1 or 4 and 0 will break it. Their last opponent, Samurai, who
Oh
is
my
10
gosh.
and 42.
So this is, I'm really glad you say that because this is something I was telling Tech earlier, like right before the show. I have a nice little algorithm that I use to generate playoff predictions based upon matchup, strength of schedule, and division schedule, stuff like that. And this matchup actually broke the algorithm because it predicted that Dagon was somehow going to get 5.5 wins in the last match day. And it's clearly not
In before
possible.
Dagon loses to Samurai and they
happened.
get to play spoiler.
Oh, if they get 4-0'd by Samurai, that would be insane. But I think there's a very, very good chance that Dagon is somehow going to be a better version of Dagon than last season. And I can't even wrap my brain around that. That's.
Yeah. I whatever, man. I wonder who is gonna win.
I mean, you say that playoffs, anything can happen.
It's true.
Last season, Dagon played Ionic in the semifinals. It went to Game 5 overtime.
But also those two teams were throughout the season, we knew that Ionic was also a just monster of a powerhouse, right? They ended up with like 4 or 5 wins behind you guys, correct?
Yeah,
Something
no,
like
but
that?
let me cook.
Okay,
Um,
okay, I got you.
Okay, okay.
No, I just
Respect.
want to put out there. Yes, but I mean, we were the better team. We still had
Mhm.
a significant lead on them, but we knew they were the best team besides us. They easily could have won that. Like we scored with 0 seconds left in Game 5 to go to overtime to win in overtime. Playoffs, anything can happen. Obviously, that finals was so bad that RSC decided to get rid
Yeah.
of conferences. Which
Yeah.
appreciate it. But now, like, yes, there is a 9-game lead on Gluttony right now. But if you look at the past results, that series was a 2-2. So
Mhm.
it's you play one more game. Yeah, probably Dagon is favored in that Game 5, but there's nothing saying Gluttony can't win this, or even Wisps, who has been right there at the top as well.
It is worth
True,
noting.
true.
But also it is worth noting that you have like a 10-game lead on them. So
Yeah.
I mean, like the difference between you and this team that is so threatening to you is the difference between second and eighth. So, like, I don't know what
Look, we
you
can
want me to say about
we
that.
could glaze Dagon here all night, but Tech, I think it's a good time we could just talk about Ambi.
Yeah, so we'll jump on in.
God.
Unfortunately, no 40 win team in AMI this season. Shadows got very close, 39 and 13. Elements, surprise from the Elements, 38 and 14. Sloth, 37-15. Bunts of Steel, 30 and 22. Sacrificed is 29 and 23. I know we only look at top 5, but because we are going into playoffs, we will shout out House Salads, who is 25 and 27. Didn't quite get the 500 record, but will be going into playoffs.
Hey, man, if you're in
So
the arena, you got a chance.
100%. And I'm glad that I goofed and I left up last week's standings because it really shows a solid indication here. The 1 3 and 5 have, or sorry, 1 4 and 5 have been pretty stationary for the last couple weeks. Like we've seen effectively the same teams week in and week out, and it's really just been Surprise and Sloth kind of bouncing back and forth in that 2 and 3 slot. So it's there's a lot of stability in AMI, which is kind of weird. Normally in the lower tiers, you see just absolute fluctuations as players develop throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extremely close tier. It's kind of mimics Master in that way, where you have these top 3 teams separating themselves by multiple games, 5+ games from the rest of the tier, and it's a very even draw, right? All 3 of those teams, 15 and 5 in their last 20, all of them within 2 games of each other. I mean, it's going to be anybody's game. I'm really curious to see how it plays out because usually in amateur, you don't have this many teams close to each other for with multiple good players. Like it's really cool to see. I think it's as also RSC continues to improve, right? We see amateur in particular continue to improve, and it's really neat to see how the skill continues to go up, and it leads to more exciting seasons through all of the tiers.
Well, I think something to look at too, kind of jumping off that, is this is the first season amateur has had 12 teams. We usually have
Mhm.
8, which means we have 6 teams making playoffs instead of the normal 4. I'm really excited to see that 3 and 6 matchup and that 4 and 5 matchup, and see, hey, does this 5th and 6th seed teams, do they put up a fight? Do they show that, hey, we
Yeah.
belong in this dance as well?
For sure, for sure. Well, fellas, I think that wraps up our weekly 5 pretty nicely and has us rolling quickly into our first deep dive so we can start hammering out some of these more finite details. Getting into God, Master. Oh.
Don't worry, don't worry. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I don't know what you want me to say. We're breaking down a tier where my homies are killing it right now. So, I mean, boss, you wanna start us off? What should we get into first about
Well,
Master?
I think, obviously most people tune in. They want to talk about more of the sound bites. They want to hear really the interesting
Yeah,
takes. So I want to hear you guys give me who do you think's going to win Master Tier this season? What team is going to take home the proverbial trophy?
Tech, you want to start us off?
I mean, if you just want to say eggplants real quick to get it over with,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
let
mind
me.
jumping off
I
you.
got so here we go. I'm gonna do this, but with reasoning, right? Like I actually absolutely all homering aside, I think it's the eggplants are the only one you can make a real argument for, right? You look at the top 3 teams that are making this push, separating themselves, and in the last 2 or 3 match days, the eggplants have 3-1 both of them. They're also the only team that has 3 players in the All-Star ballot right now, and they have 2 in the MVP ballot, and they have the top RPV player by a whole 12. Right? It's a monster, well-rounded team. Everyone fits a role, and obviously I know this team better than I know the other teams, right? I'm on it. And for those who are curious, I am not a starter on the team. It's Gavalanche, Delfino, and Zippy, and all 3 of them are just monsters. And it's been kind of a whole season thing. I don't really know what arguments you can make for a different roster, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. They're also the only team that's above 14-6 in their last 5, with the hardest schedule in their last 5, and we're 16-4. So
Yeah, so I can jump in. And you know I'm a Rob hater, and I think everybody that's
yeah,
watching knows that. First thing I
I
would
think you're
say
so
is
poster.
I don't know about that. That's kind of crazy accusations, but I mean, if you look at this tier in general, top team eggplants, they're 35-17. Like, it sounds like a great record. It is a great record. It's also the lowest amount of wins,
yeah.
tied with one other tier for the top team in any tier. Like, they're not that good.
Mhm.
With that said, if I am going to pick any team to win it, as much as I want to hate, I can't. I mean, Rob talked about it. Gavalanche, number 1 in RPV with players that have at least 30 games played.
Yeah, worth noting.
88.2. Dolfino is sitting a few below him at 75.1. Then you have General Zippy at 68.8. Like, this entire team is good. It's not one of those teams where you have somebody that carries and then there's some weak spots and a good team will find a way to abuse that and really kind of knock down that weak link. This entire team's good. As long as Rob's on the bench, they have a chance to beat
Yes,
anybody.
sir. Yes,
As
sir.
long as Rob's on the bench.
Look,
That's wild.
piggybacking it. I mean, you see, like,
Oh,
they're 2 of the
buddy. You gotta
there's
let me
3 of
talk here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess, but it's my team. Let me one more glazing point really quick is that you talked about the RPV, everyone having that high. For those who are wondering, of among players who have played more than 50% of games, they're number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8. 1, 5, and 8 in the entire tier. So like it's not just that they're doing well as a team, it's that statistically right now of people who are actually playing, they are 3 of the top 8 players. And obviously they're boosting each other, right? They're all playing really well. But that's a really, really impressive. Anyway, boss, take it away.
All right. Yes, I will go before you glaze here. No, so okay. We all know that clearly on any given day, any team could lose. Like
Yeah.
we saw the Great Whites, who Rob and I both thought last week was going to be that elite team. Like obviously, Rob had a lot of confidence in his Cosmos to potentially win it. We knew there were other teams that could compete, but we both had a strong feeling that the Great Whites would be a massive contender. And then I think they got knocked out in the quarterfinals
They lost
by
to
Azeroth.
yeah, I think it was semis, but
Yeah, I think
It
it
could
was
be
semis they
semis
swept them.
because they had
for
the
sure.
bye, and then we played them after that, and then they played Azathoth. So that means that yeah, there was semis.
Right. And so, like, while I'm going to say that, yes, Heinous Henchman and Tempest easily could just pop off one night and take it, I, I've seen Gavalanche play in person. I watched him at the Boston LAN play in a twos tourney against literally Phase's fourth. He had Ghost use his teammate. They were playing against Phase's fourth and another player, like a like a bubble team player, and they held their own. They went to the full depth on a $500 payout tourney, and he has the mechs to get it done by far. Like he can cook anything at this point. So if I were to bet against anyone outside of it, I just couldn't. The eye test is there. He looks like that guy, and you gotta give him props. I am in fact picking the eggplants, Rob. I just want to clarify that real quick.
Come on! Listen, nobody does it like them, bro. I'm not even gonna say like us. Let them cook, man. Nobody does it like them. I'll be honest. If the only thing that can stop them is themselves, that's it. And it's not even like it's a negative mental. They have a great mental, but as with anybody, right? If the other team starts to get some momentum, sometimes it can be hard to pull yourself out of that. Now, I will say this is what I'm actually helpful for. The only series that the eggplants have lost is when I wasn't there, and I genuinely think that I play a decent role in helping them remember to communicate, remember to have objectives in the game when things start to go wrong. Maybe that's the self-glazing to make myself feel like I have any part
That
in the
sounds like
team.
a lot of
But
self-glazing.
but
And
also
no, my
I
man, we're
coach
supposed to be
the
getting
game.
into the
Yeah.
glazing time of MVP talks.
Uh, give me Gav. 12 RPV more than
Give me
anyone else on
Kev.
the number 1 team. Come on, man. Dude's a monster.
So, Mr. Tech, for MVP conversation here, who are you picking as Masters MVP?
Man,
I know exactly. I mean, good luck.
no, I mean it is good luck, right? Like you MVP, you have to think about a lot of things. It's not only who is the best player; it's also who is the most liked player, because that kind of just voting for people you like is a thing. Like, and also you got to think, if Eggplants puts multiple players on that ballot, that might be tough for him, because it might split some votes.
Yeah.
Where otherwise they wouldn't have them. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Ant from Fate of Forgers. He's kind of right there near the
Interesting.
top in RPV as well. Chasing records. Like, I don't know. I think being kind of the main guy on the team. Obviously you got Swift a little bit further down, who's only played 28 games, but they're still there. Like, but it's been mostly Ant, whereas Gavalanche has had a lot more help.
That's fair. The Russell Westbrook argument.
And I will say, I think that did get him the MVP. That I can't remember what fucking season it was, but that got him an
28.
MVP.
Yeah.
But I, as much as I see where you're coming from, Tech, and we saw that happen before in some previous seasons, I I do think Avalanche is just that dude. A lot of people know him. He's a pretty
Yep.
consistent face. He shows up to a lot of the events and stuff. So I think there's a good chance that he gets MVP this season.
So I do want to not just glaze the eggplants. Pause on that statement. But overall, I think there are a lot of teams that are producing at this really high level. I want to give a shout out to Jackson and the Tempest as well. I think if I'm not picking Gav, Jackson is probably my MVP pick. Either that or Honk equals Bonk, the homie, Kandra, new name. Because both of them are the kind of driving forces on their respective top 3 teams that have made that separation. Jackson actually leads the tier with 18 MVPs right now. Playing at a really high level, has in the past as well. I think that this is really close. You make a really good point that when we're talking about who, I'm kind of backtracking slightly. When we're talking about who the best teams are in a tier, and for them to only have the Eggplants to be number 1 with only 35 wins, you're right. It's really, really close. And I think you're going to see that in the playoffs, right? And normally you're going to see the number 1 team probably easily win a series or 2 no matter what, right? That's not going to happen here. Everything in Master is really, really hotly contested. There have been a ton of 1-goal games, a ton of overtime wins, and a couple bounces go a couple different ways. And it doesn't seem like Gav has 12 RPV more than everyone else. And it doesn't seem like there's this, number 1 RPV on number 1 team. Like, these are really, really close. So a lot of these teams, despite all of the eggplant glazing, are really, really good. And if we played them on another night or things just went slightly differently, it really could be anybody's tier.
Ooh. Sorry, my bad.
You're good. You're good.
But no, I definitely see where you're coming from, because well, I guess I already said any given team on any given day can really take the wins. You know, I don't follow every tier because it's just be mad, but I always call back to season 15 where Strut and Root Bear for the Swiss Swindlers ended up knocking out the the Wasps from the Swarm.
hmm
And they were like record setting for their season. They were a disgusting team, and then opening round of the playoffs against the 8th seed, they just get bounced. So I don't think that'll happen with the Eggplants here, but I definitely think that there's a chance that we could see another team. We could see a
Yeah.
team like even Feta Forgers take the
I mean,
take the dub.
we got 3-1 by them when I was playing, for what it's worth. But then the other 3 went out and kind of cooked in scrims. But even team
Well,
like
and
the
plus,
Chimeras has like 2 of the top 6 or 7 RPV players, right? And they're 29 and 23. Ant, second highest RPV in the tier. That team 29 and 23. So you have all of this talent, right? And it might not be producing wins, but like, man, you have a lot of really good individual players and really good combos of players that can carry you in a really fascinating way. If they're really cooking, right? If Ant, like I've seen it firsthand. If Ant gets hot, like it's hard to stop. He plays in such a surprising way, he cuts on things, demos, creates space in a really different way. And playing differently and surprisingly is sometimes better than playing conventionally well.
Fair, fair. Well, I think that covers though MVP conversation pretty well. I know we've talked
Mhm.
about who's your winner, who's your MVP. Fellas, who are you picking for a dark horse team to make a run through the playoffs here?
You want to go first?
Yeah,
Me?
Boss, take this away.
Yeah.
I will need just a minute, Rob, if you want to
Alright,
start us off.
Imagine
sounds good.
asking a question and not already having an answer for that
Yeah,
question.
that's
I
crazy.
ask the questions, I don't have the answer, okay? All right, somebody scored. I
I
can
was gonna say,
roll
you,
up
can,
the
you can
standings.
pretend like we can't hear your sticks clicking in the background there, boss, but we all know what's going on here.
I think, I mean, my pick would be the Camaros. Um, I They have a pretty consistent roster. With Sin, Treasy, and Plasma. I believe Sin was pretty recently acquired. I don't remember when, but that makes their starting lineup right. They're currently, what is their record? 29 and 23, tied for that fourth best record, but they are the sixth seed. Only 11 and 9 in the last 20, barely above 500. So, I mean, yes, they're not that dark of a horse, but they're also not one of those top three teams that we see making that separation. But their starting lineup now has RPVs of 76, 75, and 60. And that's really well rounded. And if you look at the Eggplants or any of these other top teams, the Eggplants are the only one that have three that are producing at that high level. And the Chimeras seem to be right there now with this roster move. And stats aren't everything, but they generally lend themselves to being consistently threatening. And they kind of check that box in a way that some other ones don't.
Fair enough. I guess now that I've got now that I've got the actual standings pull up for Master and I can look at the last five, I brought up earlier that you guys are getting hot at the right time because you're 16 and 4 in the last
Mhm.
five. I think I'm gonna butcher the absolute crap out of the pronunciation.
Ayahuasca
The
alpacas.
ayahuasca?
I mean, no, that's just the same
Oh,
letters. It's not actually what that is.
Huyakaya,
Yeah.
or however you want to pronounce that. The fact that they're 13 and 7 and a lot of their wins seem to be coming fairly recently and they've moved up the standings a little bit here to squeak into the playoffs. This could be another moment where a team is really finding their footing super late in the season. They're getting prepped to make a deep run and we might see it. It's happened before. I don't have like a definitive, oh, look at this team from season 17 or this team from season 16, but it's clearly happened before where we've seen a lower seed team just go the distance.
I mean, you see Huakaya's, right? That's what we're gonna call him. Uh, the player with 100 RPV right now, granted it's only in 26 games, is now on their roster. Um, so they might have just picked somebody up who gaps the tier who nobody knows about. So we'll see. You might be right. You might be onto something with that.
Who knows? We'll see though.
And I will
You
say
know,
that
actually,
was my pick as well. And Rob hit it on the head, picking up Isaac. 99 99.7 RPV. Only person above him is Jat. Doesn't have the games, but obviously they've been winning lately, and I assume that that's probably a big reason why. I always have faith in Bosco. That's my uncle. Shout out Uncle Bosco.
Uncle
And
Bosco.
then I mean they have Westby and Timbo, who are both fine players as well. So I
But the
think
other thing,
go ahead.
well, as you talk about Isaac, right, and how how this player is contributing to winning, they have 9 MVPs in their 16 wins this season. So you're right. This player is more often than not, literally more often than not, when they win, the player producing the most on that team.
Also 11 cycles in 26 games.
Yeah. So doing everything. I mean, that's towards the top of the tier. actually. 15 seems to be number one, and that's in 52 games. So 11 and 26. They might have hit the gold mine right here, man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's on pace for 22 if they would have played the 52 games.
Maybe I reach out to them to scrim in a couple weeks.
Maybe you should see what you're gonna go up against.
Actually, for what it's worth, next week we'll have a we scrim the other top two, or we scrim the Tempest and the Heinous Henchman for this week, so it'll be interesting to see how those go. With the series are very tight, and we'll see if either team kind of gets the other one's number as we see a little bit more of their play, right? Because those are the three teams that are making that separation we keep referencing.
Fair point. Fair point. Is there a separate topic in Master that you guys would like to talk about, or do you think covering MVPs, predicted winners, and a dark horse is a good deep dive for you?
The final thing that I would like to mention is that there are currently 12 teams that have a very reasonable chance of being in the playoffs. The only three that have clinched are the top three, and that's crazy considering there's only 2 match days left. So even if you're 29 and 23 right now, you have to be very careful over these last 2 match days, because you look down and in that 12 spot, you have Orion, who's 11 and 9 in the last 5, right? But they're 24 and 28. They still have a serious chance at this playoffs, man. Depending on matchups, right? Like 1-4-0, and you go from 4th in the entire tier to 12th. Like, you got to be real careful. That's my major last point that I really want to make sure we talk about.
Orion is playing Tempests on Monday, so they're going up against the
Oh, that's
team that is
tough.
already
Yeah.
clinched too, which is something else to think about. And then
True.
who's the other one there?
Oh
like
God, the
12 team
Huyakayas are
Stagnant
playing the
Snails
Heinous
in there.
Henchmen.
Stagnant Snails play the Recluses on Monday. So again, I mean, everybody's just scrapping it out in there.
Yeah.
Tech, we might have to change our dark horse later on in the season because the Huyakayas are playing the
Later
Heinous
on in
Henchmen.
the season, next
There
weekend,
is no-
next weekend, the games
Yeah.
are already going to be done.
So Bas, you need to calm down. Huakai is just 4-0ing that series, by the way.
If
Yes,
they
sir.
4-0 the Heinous Henchmen, I think at that point in time, there's going to be so much credence given to them as like a definitive dark horse rising that nobody's going to be able to look away and say that they're not potential championship contenders.
I don't know. Easy 4-0, book it. They play the Recluses after that. They're going to drop one game to the Recluses off something dumb, but they're going 7-1 to finish the season out.
Oh, that is rough. Damn. Well, I don't really have anything else for Master. Master seems to be pretty straightforward from what we've talked about. I think this is probably a good time where we can segue on over into Rob's incredible, not really trivia this week, more so Rob's record keeping.
Yes, sir. So we're at that 3/4 point or end point in some of these, right? So we're approaching the spot where a lot of these records are very clearly getting threatened, or are even maybe already broken in some cases. What do we want to start with? We got nothing in AMI, so either contender or premier. I'll let you pick, Tech. Actually, what do you think, contender or premier to start?
Let's get contender out of the way.
Cool. So you already had mentioned that win record, right? If they go 3-1, they break it. Worth noting. They is Dagon. Unbelievable season so far. And the other ones that I noticed is the contender assist record is currently 48, and you have 2 players at 45 right now. So this will be really interesting. There's one more match day for contender? 2 more?
One more.
Okay, so with one final match day, both of these players are 3 assists away. It's going to be, they're tied, and they are Balto Storm and Heartless Winds at 45 apiece. And the savior record is 14, and Balto Storm has 10. So also could fall with or at least get tied with a 4 savior performance. We got nothing in prospect. So in challenger, where there are 2 more, I think. This is relevant. I should have got this already. With 2 more match days. So this will need a pretty heroic performance. But Cryptic Games is at 47 assists, and the record is 62. So you're gonna have to average a lot of assists, but it is reachable. And this one is really in threat, really in danger of being broken. The savior record is 16 in Challenger. You have a Foxy Pancake at 15 and JPD at 14. So that's probably going to fall. In Rival, you all know what's up. Laban having a season for the ages.
Ooh.
She has already broken the Saviors record, which was 20. Laban is currently at 22 with those 2 match days remaining. So anything else, 3 match days remaining. Oh my
Three in
goodness.
Rival, yeah.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh. So with any more saves or saviors that she gets, she's building on that record. And as I mentioned, saves, she's currently tied at 121 with the record. So any more
I
that
do
she
wanna
gets also breaks that.
I do want to throw in something on top of that. Laban did message me and let me know that they are going to miss 4 out of 12 of those matches. So they're going to miss a whole match
Ooh.
day. So their record, while it will be broken, won't be, I guess, the peak of what it could be. So
Mhm.
we could in
still
theory
more
see within a
room.
couple seasons. There's some more room on that record that it could be broken again later on.
And
Not like the vet one that's coming up later.
Yeah.
in Challenger below too, something that I noticed, and this where Laban stands out, the saviors, like the savior medal for Foxy Pancake and JPD, that record, like
Mhm.
Blueprints has the same amount of saves as Foxy Pancake. They both have 90. But Blueprints isn't in that savior conversation. We're looking at like single game performances over a long course of time
Yeah.
for some of these, which really colors those numbers a little differently too.
Very good point. That's actually very relevant in a conversation we'll get to in just a moment about the all-time records that may be broken this season for all tiers combined. And then so that just about wraps us up for Rival. Moving into Veteran, this one is going to be very tough to reach as well. But the cycles record is 26, and you have 4 players at either 16 or 17 with Alpha Chuck, Little Chris, and Ditto all at 17, and Blue Eyes Thunder Thighs, great name, at 16. And then the savior record in this one as well is being threatened. 22 is the record, and Ditto has 16. So, I mean, you're seeing. I mean, also shout out to Ditto, right? Because that is a 16 savior. Wait, I had this. I had them in the cycle conversation, but they were not. It was the person above them. Lil Panda is actually in their spot at 17, who they were one person above. So Lil Panda is the one with 17 cycles, and Ditto has 16 saviors. That makes more sense. Moving into Elite, the shot record is 239, and Avatar Man's is at 181. So with a few really, really strong match days of a lot of shots, you could see that get pushed. Now, nothing in Master is getting broken this season, Sag. Into
I
Premier.
kind of figured that would happen though. Like looking at the team standings, nobody's really
Yeah.
like stupidly high outside the pack. So it kind of makes sense, I guess.
It reflects what Tech had mentioned earlier about how, despite the Eggplants being in first place, right, 35 wins is pretty close to the median or mean. So, and surprisingly, in Premier, you have a ton being threatened. If Leonis or Wicked go berserk in their last match day, let me confirm that I'm correct. Speaking about only being one more match day.
There's only
Yeah,
one.
so one more match day in Prem. Leonis is 11 assists away from the record, and Wicked is 10. It's 59 is the record. They're at 49 and 48 respectively. That is reachable. MVPs, the record is 25, and Anti is at. What was it? I apologize. This one was a typo. Anti is at 21 right now, so they could tie. And it's worth mentioning that they actually had a forfeit in their last match day, so there were no stats gained. So as we get into the saves record and points record that they were pushing for, missing those 4 matches, I believe will be the reason that Anti doesn't get at least 2 of these records, which is unlucky, but things happen. Still an amazing season regardless. So 4 away from that MVP record. Save record, Ante is 20 away. The record is 128. Ante's at 108 with that forfeit. The savior record is 24, and Ante now has 25 already. Even with a forfeit match, missing out 4 games. Crazy stuff. The cycles record is 25. Wicked is at 22. So a chance with a cycle in all 4 matches to break that. And then that actually wraps up our premier records. And these are the crazy ones. The all-time records that are threatening to be broken in any single tier. Saviors, 26 was set by Slop in Elite in season 14. Ante is 1 away from that with that forfeit. Nuts stuff,
It
especially
is
in the
wild
highest
to
tier.
think if the opponents didn't forfeit, there's a very solid chance that Ante could at least have tied, if not potentially, well, at least tied. They would have tied.
There's still
They
one
couldn't
more match day.
No, I mean like they could already be tied going into that last match day,
Oh
and
yeah.
then they'd have 4 game chance to effectively break that record.
Yeah, and what's even crazier is that it's in Premier, which has 2 less match days than the record.
Mhm.
So just crazy pace. And then Laban is at 22, so 3 behind Ante. Will also have to deal with essentially a forfeit, right? With those 4 games, they can't be there. So their pace will be similar, except Rival also has 2 more match days. So despite being 3 behind, there's a real chance that Laban will be able to take that savior record both over Ante and over the all-time record. And with
I
the
do want
savior
to
record, go ahead.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Ante. Ante, for a lot of you who don't follow the Twos League, did just win Premier and Twos. It's their
Again.
back to back. Well, sorry. Yeah, it's their second straight
Yeah.
season in Twos with the chip. If they can win the threes Prem side and have effectively 3 chips in a calendar season or back to back, between twos and threes, I believe if we were to talk like GOAT status in
Oh my goodness.
RSC, Ante's. I mean, is there anybody
Peaceful,
like you could
maybe?
maybe? But Peaceful,
Peaceful
I
had
don't think
like
Peaceful even.
6 90+ SBV seasons in Prem or
But
something
did
like it.
they win?
I don't know. Well, this could be a good small topic that we could dive into in another podcast. Is who's the goat arguments
Well,
for
yeah,
for
maybe next
RSC
maybe
players?
next week we'll do that as an
Yeah,
actual GOAT discussion.
yeah, that'll be fun. But anyway, wrapping up with the all-time records,
Hmm.
you have so with the saviors being broken, right? Saves are obviously right there. And even though Ante has 3 more saviors than Laban, Laban has 13 more saves. So with the record is 133, Laban's at 121 and Ante's at 108. So this will probably be Laban's record in 2 match days, maybe if that. And the final one is the all-time demo record that was broken at the midway point. Angel has 250 demos in veteran over her however many games. The record was
Wow,
previously 180,
that's a
but
they
250
slowed
is
down
crazy.
because yeah, at the midway point they're at like what 188, and I
Well,
think
people
they're
probably figured out that if you're playing against Angel, you have to be
look over
very
your
ready.
shoulder
Yeah,
24/7.
yeah. So I'd imagine that as people kind of have that scouting report, the number cannot continue at that pace, especially with like a stat that people can really directly control whether or not you get that demo. You might be able to mess them up, and they might still give up a goal because they're now focusing on you instead of the ball. But if you're going for a bump and you make them jump, you get no stats if they dodge you and give up a goal. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that wraps up our all-time records and tier record wrap up for now.
Well, then that means that takes us squarely into our last segment of the night. That takes us right into our Chally deep dive. I know there's been quite a few people who were interested in it this week. I know Dondo messaged me and said, "Hey, bro, you better shout us out on the podcast. We've been killing it." And he has, but we'll get further into that here, fellas.
Actually, speaking of Chally and all-time records, there is one that I was unaware of. That I somehow missed earlier. Levi Bullrush currently has 26 MVPs. The all-time record in Chally is 30, and the all-time record overall is 32. So with Chally, with 2 more match days left, if they get 4 MVPs, they tie that record, and if they get 8 or 7 MVPs. They break the all-time. So really, really impressive stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
That's what I thought.
Oh my god.
All right, getting into Chally, fellas. It's an interesting tier. We've talked about kind of the playoff race beforehand being probably one of the wildest we've seen in a long time, especially with like this week's going to have one of the best matchups of RSC this season and potentially of the last few seasons, with a divisional matchup, both being 39 and 13, tied for first.
Yeah.
Can you realistically, before that matchup, pick a best team? And if so, who are you picking?
I kind of think it's funny just to say, Bas, answer your own question.
Yeah,
You
yeah. Let's
know,
see if he
and
has an
I,
answer for this
I,
one.
I do have an answer for this one actually.
Okay, let's
So
hear
Okay.
it.
for me,
Impressive.
the hardest, and this hurts, right? Because this is part of the franchise that I've been helping and working with, but it's not. I'm not picking the franchise's team. Um, we talked about, or I've at least mentioned multiple times, getting hot at the right time. It feels like Slice Baby have kind of cooled off, so, which is weird to say because they were 15 and 5 in their last 5. But there was a point where they were like 19 and 1 in their back 5. Like they were almost unbeaten through that stretch. And it definitely feels like, they hit that peak, they got ahead by about 4 or 5 games, and then they said, you know what, we're fine, we can coast a little bit. And now we're seeing this Abyss team who are really hungry, who have been fighting to avoid the 5th seed and at least take their division and the whole conference. Uh, just absolutely storm their way up the charts, and now they're tied with Slice Baby. I think there's a really good chance that Abyss are going to be the hungrier team and a steamroll through the playoffs. But I think it also all entirely depends on how this matchup goes, because they play on match day 14, second to last, against Slice Baby. If Abyss beats Slice Baby, does that affect their hunger? Does Slice Baby get the reality check they need now that they're going to be the 5th seed? I think that is totally up in the air, and either answer is totally acceptable. But I think as of this point in time, I'm picking Abyss.
Man, what a way to finish your season. To finish your regular season, match day 14, head to head determine 1 seed. That's wild.
Well, you know what the crazier part is? They probably will play each other in the first round of playoffs
Probably.
because they're going to be the 1 and 5 seed, no matter unless
Oh yeah, there's no way they're not.
Toucans could potentially, if one of these teams gets 4-0'd and Toucans at least 3-1, that's how that would happen. But I mean, if there's a 3-1, it'll at least come down to tiebreaker most likely. And with a 2-2, you can almost guarantee, which is the most likely outcome of this, in my opinion. With a 2-2, you actually, let's see what happened last time. But with a 2-2, you play each other in the first round, almost guaranteed. Slice Baby, and
Well,
they.
one would play 8, right? Not 5.
Oh yeah. One would play 8, but then they would play them in the next round
As
after.
long as 6th seed, 7th seed, or 8th seed does not win.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, is
assuming
there?
they
I
won't
forget about reseed. Is reseeding for sure like a thing?
Reseeding is for sure a thing. So
Okay.
it'll be entirely
Okay.
depending on how the matchups play out. But more than likely, I believe we can make the assumption right now that for Solar, the 5 seed's probably going to beat the 4 seed. The 4 seed would likely be Squalls, who are 28 and 24.
Interesting. So that wouldn't, with
Going
the
to get
reseeding, that wouldn't be affecting their, or it might.
reseeding it likely could be, because right, if Toucans and Havarti Hustlers both beat the 7 and 6 seed respectively, and Slice Baby beats the 8 seed, it would then be the 1 versus 5 seed immediately
Yeah.
right after in the second round. So
Yeah.
that should be about when they face. But if the 2 or the 3 seed are eliminated, it doesn't matter. It'll be postponed for just one more day.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be crazy regardless. I think there's a decent chance that maybe not the first round, right? I skipped over this first round of playoffs, but I think there's a chance that they play each other, and that could create I mean, like, if even if you lose this matchup, right, and you get the 5 seed, like, you're still confident going forward that you can beat these guys in the playoffs. So I think, as you were talking about, Challenger is going to be one of, if not the most interesting playoff structure and playoff scenarios that we have in RSC this season.
Match day 4, when Slice Baby and Abyss matched up the first time. That was September 20th. It was a 4-0 for Slice Baby.
Whoa.
So that is the wild part, right? So like when you look at the standings, Slice Baby are they murdered their division the first time through. They were 11-1, and their only loss I think was to I don't think it was to Recycling Cringe. I'm pretty sure it
Let me
was
find-
to
let me
Spearmint.
What a funny name, by the way.
I think it was to Spearmint, but it is
was
wild
not
when you
to
think about
Spearmint.
it. Also, it would have been to Recycling Cringe, who are currently
Let's see.
29th.
Sephora Abyss. And yeah, it was to Recycling Cringe. 3-1.
Yeah, so it's they killed their division the first time through. I think Abyss through I don't think they made any like massive roster changes, but they definitely made some playstyle changes that totally changed their team around. And it doesn't look like the same team from the beginning at all whatsoever.
I got a
Um,
question for you guys.
Sure.
If you were the Squalls, right, and you're one game up on the other team in your conference or your division, would you try to let them go ahead of you so you don't have to play Abyss first round? Would you rather play like the 2 seed, who, even if because Abyss at the 5 seed is almost certainly going to have more wins than the 2 seed overall?
Don't care.
Oh, I mean, I think it doesn't matter. I think that if you're going
Do
into the
you take
playoffs,
the
you're confident that you beat everybody, right?
Well, I
But
mean, you're trying to win the whole thing. You're gonna have to
yeah,
play them eventually, like, or you're gonna
I
have to play a
agree.
team that beat
Yeah,
them. Like, who cares?
Well, and I
Like,
think
just
the
win the
mental.
best most games you possibly can. Boss, sorry to cut you off. You're right. Keep that mental. Make sure you know that you can beat them. You play your best every single time you go out.
I
Well,
think
and
you're right.
like I was gonna say, like I think if you go into the match night and you go, oh, if we 2-2 this team or if we 1-3 this team, then we fall to the 7th seed and then we don't have to play the Abyss in the first round. Like that mental is so chalked. Like you're
Yeah,
saying you're telling yourself in the back of your mind, we're not good enough to beat this team, so we need to prolong our playoff run because we know when we get there, we're gonna get shit stomped.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, like, let's say hypothetically, right? Wouldn't you, if you have, and this is a wild comparison, but if you have like the Warriors from like 2018 on one side of the bracket, right? If you think that this team just has your number, or if you think Slice Baby or whichever team like is just matches up really well against you, wouldn't you get something for like? But you think you can beat a different team that has like the same ish number of wins? Wouldn't you want to at least give them a hypothetical another chance to get knocked out by someone else before you have to go through the juggernaut?
The-
Um, I
I
mean,
Go
agree.
ahead.
sure, but I think with these two teams being so much better than the rest, I don't see there being like a logical statement of,
That's fair.
oh, if
Yeah.
we prolong it one more match night, Abyss might get knocked out by, I don't know, fucking, they might get knocked out by the Flailers. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, you're pushing somebody else to be the sacrificial lamb
Yeah. Yeah.
for one more match night before
Yeah.
you get your turn, you know?
So,
I
Yeah, I agree that there is some logic there, Rob. I am there, but end of the day, I'm
You got to
trying to
go
win
through
this whole
everybody.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Like, the only way I'm gonna be able to go through this whole thing is if I have the ego going into every game saying I'm better than you and I'm gonna prove it. And as soon as I shut that ego off, and I know
You're
that, hey, I'm
done.
not
Yeah.
better than you,
It's chalked.
it's
If you
over.
say the other
It's
team is
over.
better than you, it's done that moment. I agree. So I think we've talked a lot about.
I have one thing actually before we go.
Yeah,
Before
Go
we
ahead.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, last time the Abyss met up, they got swept, right? 0-4. After that game, they made a roster change. They cut Reaper. They signed Night Raptor. Night Raptor,
Oh yeah.
since signing with Abyss, has been 20-4, 83.33 win percentage. He didn't play. He wasn't on the team during that 4-0 sweep that they took to Slice Baby. So it's not even the same team that's coming back up when they come back around here. So you just got to swing for the fences.
Yeah.
This could be a potential semifinals matchup here.
Yeah, it could. I think it's a likely one. And I think on Lunar you have something similar as well. Because the top two teams in Solar are in the same same division, and the top two of the top three teams in Lunar are in the same.
So
division.
did you say a team who you predicted was going to be the MVP? Or
Well,
not MVP, but
I still want
the winning.
to. Before doing that, I want to mention a couple more things about this playoff structure, which is on the Lunar side. You have a division leader at 21-31, which is I have some choice words, so I'm gonna take a moment, but that's not very strong for winning a division. I do not think I have ever seen a team at 21-31 be leading their division. Can either of you say otherwise?
I've never seen a playoff team like the Spartans, we're gonna say their name here live on broadcast, be 10 games down and potentially qualify for the playoffs. I think the funniest thing is they're not likely to actually have that playoff spot. It's likely to go to the Threshers, who have a better divisional record. Or it could go to the Tarantulas, who are currently 11-5 in their division.
But
and they're
18-34 overall.
Dude,
There's
like,
7 in. Oh my
there's
god.
a really solid chance that they go 7-1 over these last two match nights, finish 25-35, and take the playoff spot. And they are currently, as of right this moment, tied for 27th in the league, and they might qualify for a playoff spot.
You always got a shot, I guess. You look
The
at their
Commanders can do
future.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, like, talk about luck of the draw. I mean, we talked about it, right? You saw Ice personally last season. Tech, you saw a team that was about 500, maybe a little bit under, go make it to the finals, right?
So I just looked that up. I want to jump in on this.
Mhm.
So all of Solar was every team from Solar that made playoffs was under 500
Yeah, they were the
last
ones
season in
here.
contender.
Yeah.
27-29, 26-30, 26-30. This is even worse than that.
By a lot. By 5
Yeah.
games. Yeah.
It's not close.
At least the
This
cutoff
might
to
be
make
the
the
worst
wild card
playoff
is,
team of
yeah,
all
at
time.
least the cutoff to make the wild card is still
Ugh.
roughly 500.
Yeah, they're
Well,
5
and the
games.
worst part is they're going to step into a buzzsaw, because regardless of if they get Abyss or Slice Baby, they're getting one of the best teams in the tier.
Other one.
Yeah, they're in the
Oh, they're Lunar. That's
So
right. No,
they're
they
gonna
would get the
play.
Strawberries.
Yeah, which I think they just made as we're talking about them, that's a great segue. I think that's a dark horse.
They picked up
We'll get
Mango,
to it in a
right?
minute. They did. They picked up a player. They were already one of the better teams in the tier, and they picked up a 79 RPV player and immediately 4-0'd. So I mean, as we're talking about all these storylines, we could go on forever. But I mean, they play the #1 team in Lunar this week, and they're in their division. That could be a swap again between that 1 and that 5 seed, right? So there's a lot of. I mean,
That's wild that a 10-game deficit playoff team is going to likely have to play a team that could qualify as the #1 team in their conference.
They're gonna play someone who has 15 more wins than they do and be higher seeded. Like literally 15 more wins and higher seeded than them. Like I do think that we should have conferences and divisions in Challenger. I think it is a large enough tier to do that. I just think what we're looking at is an unbelievable outlier. And it's crazy to be watching. I mean, because if you're them, you gotta have all the confidence in the world, man. It doesn't matter what happened. You get to the arena, you have a shot. Like you have to win 3 games of Rocket League out of 5.
Dude,
That's why we play the game. It's a toss up a lot of the time. Best team in the
just
tier
imagine.
wins 60% of the time.
Just imagine how angry you have to be if you're the Greed or the Zombies. You know, you're 26 and 26 or 25 and 27.
Yeah.
You don't qual for the playoffs, but because of the division system, I Isopods who are 21 and 31
Yeah.
likely will get that playoff spot.
Anyway, boss.
I want tarantulas to do it. I think that's my pick.
There's a
I would
chance.
like tarantulas to find a way into the playoffs here because that would be incredible.
18 and
I have them potentially winning 7 of their 8 next games. They killed their division the first time around. They were really solid. If they go really solid for the back 2 matchups, there's a good chance that they squeak into the playoffs.
They already have the division tiebreaker with the rest of their division as it stands the first time through, and then
I think they 4-0'd the Isopods the first time through.
They have the lead considerably. They're 3 games ahead of the next closest in the division race, but
Yeah,
they're
man,
the worst
if they
record,
can
so
get
they're
there.
last. It's just what a crazy. They're so close. All their conference wins all within 1 game. Just 4 teams that didn't quite figure it out. They just so happened to all be in the same division the same time, and this is what we got.
Also, while we're talking about the standings, I would like to give a shout out, not too positive, but to the Zombies. They're currently 25 and 27, but they're 3 and 17 in their last 20, and they're only 2 games below 500. So
That's
this team
a slide.
started out 22 and 10, and now they're 25 and 27. No idea what
Something
happened there.
egregious. Well, I was gonna say something egregious has to happen. Like maybe a
Yeah.
player gets grounded and can't play.
Yeah.
A
I mean,
couple
but even
Kraus
so, like
situations.
you would just put him on IR and get somebody else. But like 3 and 17 is,
That's brutal.
especially for a team that's like 500. Like, how does that happen to you?
I
You have, like,
will tell
25
you,
and-
picking up somebody else in free agency this season in Challenger has been almost impossible.
Is it roster numbers and like lack of FAs or what?
The
There's
FA
been a
pool is
lack.
miserable.
Yeah, I would say
And
Chally
not
and below has been garbage for FAs.
Chally
Pick
has
up
been the
Oak
worst by
and
far for me.
promo him or
And
something.
not to hate on anybody in
No,
Chally, like just
you
half of
got
the Chally
lucky.
FAs can only play on Monday or only play on Wednesday.
You got lucky because your Tendy team has not needed an FA. There was a point where Bakery was looking at potentially picking up an FA, and there were 5 people to pick from, 3 of which had really shoddy inconsistency, one of which was hella toxic, and one the 5th one was a maybe. So we're like, oh great, do we just eat it, like eat shit for the rest of the season, or do we wing it on that 5th guy, you know?
I
Like,
mean,
it
it took me 9 people. I reached out. The 9th person I reached out to pick up for my Chally team was the first one who said yes.
Let's go.
Oh man.
All right, do we want a breakdown of what happened to Zombies in real time here?
Let's do it.
So
Do you have it?
I do have it right here in front of me. I've got their
Let's see the
SNR
brain rot.
and their the transactions. So Zombies got off to a pretty good start. All the way through October 4th, match day 8, 3-1 against the Griffins. They 2-2 match day 9 against the Panda Bears. They 0-4 match day 10 against the Slow Starfish. Beginning of the end. This is 10-16. Wednesday, match day 11, 10-11 or 10-18. They get 3-1 by the Shock. After that game, both It's Lost and DCTGI are cut. It's Lost and Reaper are cut, pardon me. DCTGI and Boulder are signed to replace them. And then they go 1-3, 0-4, 0-4.
I wonder why those cuts were made. Were those players on other rosters, or did they just were they unable to play?
That
So
is a great question.
I can tell you DC was cut from another team. I think Boulder might have been cut a little bit early, but the signing of DC was off waivers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lost is still an FA. Reaper was re-signed.
I wonder. That's because if you're 22 and 10 and then you lose 1 series, what makes you blow that up?
Yeah, one you lose, one you have a shaky one, and then you they had been rolling and then a 3-1, a little wobble, a 2-2, a little wobble, the wheels come off, 0-4, and then you blow it up and just never get back to where you were. I guess it's an 0-4 and a 1-3, so it's a 1-7 stretch that leads to the roster change.
The only reason I can think of, because like if it's let's say it's a Majestic Eagle situation. Majestic Eagle had an issue with being available for games. Incredible player, great person to have on your franchise. He's in school, getting to games sometimes is a little rough. He gets cut. You don't see players like that picked up very quickly. And the fact that one of the other guys was picked up to another team leads me to believe it's more of a potential toxicity moment, right? Like a personality issue as compared to availability. So I wonder if maybe that's what it was. He just maybe he clashed with another teammate, or maybe clashed with an AGM or a GM, didn't get along. So they said, all right, we're not going to deal with it. We're going to drop you. And then somebody else said, well,
Me too,
is what
please.
is. I can live with that.
Quick, call up Frosty Brew. Ask him.
Who knows?
I mean, the GM perspective, I don't know why the players were cut. I can tell you I scouted every single player that we talked about. The one thing I will mention is DC was phenomenal player last season. In my scouting during the offseason also showed that he was a phenomenal player. Very specifically, somebody else that was on my team wanted him on our team, but in a very specific lineup. I didn't really like the lineup, so I didn't go with it. But I can understand, even if it had nothing to do with the player's cut, just jumping on DC. And DC and Boulder are buddies, I believe. And like, it obviously didn't work out, but I could see seeing that they went on waivers and just, I'm going to go after this person because this could be a dominant team.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm getting messages that someone named iRing Bad Example getting put on IR was the main downfall of this team.
So they got put on IR. Bad example, got put on IR.
Okay.
But they were 9
Well,
and
that makes
7.
sense.
They did have a 77 RPV, but a 9 and 7 record doesn't tell me that they're too crazy. So I
Well,
don't know if I agree with that call out.
So we've talked about it though, Rob. I'm ready for your prediction for best team. Who do you think's taking it home?
Personally, I think it's the Strawberries. Yeah, I think so. You see all of these teams towards the top, right? And obviously, so I have the most information about the Strawberries, because they're in the franchise that I'm on. But you normally don't see teams in the top 5, top 8 area like really make roster moves, right? And so what you saw from this team is they had a very strong roster, but particularly that first and second on that roster was really, really good. And they went out and got someone who might have been better than any player that they had statistically. And they're a 34-18 team, right? So if they just got a new best player and that jump was from their worst starter to their best starter, I mean, you're talking about a 34-18 team making a massive jump of improvement, just from one change. Acquiring an 80 RPV player will do that for you. It immediately led to a 4-0. I think that they haven't played like it the whole season. But I think that they're getting hot at the right time. They're getting some chem, and they're starting to play at a really high level. They're 15-5 in their last 5, which is up there with the best of them. And but obviously, that's a little bit more of a dark horse pick, right? We're talking about a team in 6th. If you have me pick just like a favorite, it's probably going to be that Slice Baby or Abyss team, whichever one ends up winning the matchup this week.
Okay, so we're in about agreement then for okay. Tech, who are you picking?
I mean, I could go the Rob route and just pick my own franchise for everything. Sorry, Rob. but my team is terrible
That's
with
crazy.
Jared, so I can't. No, Penny Patrol is my team. I think that roster there is fantastic. Dalton, 96.6 RPV, Mayor H, 73.5 RPV.
Shout out Mayor, by the way. Cool dude.
Mayor's the GOAT.
Mayor
And
is
Cryptic
the GOAT, yeah.
Games, 65.3 RPV. Who's their fourth? It's Marcoyo. Guy's brilliant. Has been GM in Two's league. He knows how to put things together. He knows how to lead these guys. He knows how to keep their mental up. Like that's like you can't talk to Mark and just like be upset about anything. The dude is just an amazing guy. Will keep people there to performing at their best because they just want to be around him. And 17-3 over their last 5.
He knows how to win too.
So
Yes,
Tech,
absolutely.
I got a proposal for you. I will switch my championship pick to, because if you have this much faith in this team, I'm not that familiar with most of the tier. If you think the Penne Patrol are that good, the Strawberries play them as their next game. I think I would like to change my pick from the winner of Slice Slice Baby and Abyss to the winner of Penne Patrol and Strawberries as my pick for the title. Didn't want to be too ambitious, but I think that if they are able to beat another team that you think is a contender or serious title favorite, I think they're going to beat everyone in their path, and if they win that series, that's my pick.
Okay. So I'm gonna roll us right into, since you've already mentioned it, the dark horse pick, right? So I was going to pick Strawberries for my dark horse pick, because yes, Dondo, Bubbles, and Shinx look incredible as a team. I got to play 6-mans with them the other day, and they really do have a lot of solid chemistry that works really well on the pitch. They generate some solid offense. You know, you've got a really mechy player like Bubbles, a guy who reads the field super well and knows where his teammates are in Dondo, and then you got Shinx, who's just an all-around goat. So it looks like a solid team. I think with the acquisition of Mango, it's going to be um, a make or break point for a team. So changing up a roster this late in the season can either make your team that much better or it can make your team crumble. So we picked up NC one season when we already had Jojo, myself, and Hyper. We were rolling. We picked up NC. We started changing up the lineup week to week, and then we actually lost more games than we were winning before. So I wonder how that's going to affect it. But I think if they can really find a good way to fit the 4 guys together, find what works, see who's going to start on the pitch, I think they could be that dark horse team that makes a very deep run into the playoffs.
I think particularly what you see is you're getting at that well-rounded aspect, right? If you have 4 players who can all contribute to winning at a really high level, you talk about a whole nother angle that your team can produce from, right? We've talked a little bit about Mango at that 79 RPV, and now you have a roster with Mango at 79, Bubbles and Dondo at 64.7 and 64.8 respectively, right? So that is a full lineup of players producing like 2 tiers above average, like not just above average, not insane, but like somewhere in the middle of really high level play, not tier breaking in any way, but like just producing, right? You're seeing 3 people, and Shinx, right? We're talking that's their new 4th, I believe, and Shinx is no slouch either with a 27 and 17 record and a 51 RPV, and so yeah, I think it's a good call for a team that isn't in the top 5 to come out and win that. I think there's a lot of indicators pointing that way.
So if I go with a dark horse team, first off, any dark horse, any team I'm picking to potentially win this has to be from Lunar because I know Slow Starfish are going to the finals and losing. So my team.
Shout out
that
Ari.
Oh, brother, that's hilarious.
So I'd go with Cryaz, whatever it is, the Bosco
Really?
team, the Llamas team. Yeah,
That was my dark horse pick too, Tech. It was for just for the literally just because, and I think I closed it. One of their players, where did they go? That is man, he's disappeared from me. Chef something. His name made me
Chef
laugh
Yerbo?
when I saw it. Yerbo, that's it. Chef Yerbo. He's
Yo, no. Go speak your mind. Speak your mind.
No, no, no.
Before I say something stupid on stream.
Please say something stupid. I want you to, because I just laughed at it. So that my pick is also biased just for that reason.
He's just a fucking wild card when we're playing games, dude. He's
With a name like
Let
that,
me
I can't
offer-
say I'm surprised.
Let me offer another option, right? You're talking about a team from Lunar having to be that dark horse. Irosa said it earlier in chat, but Shock is one that we should really keep an eye out for because all season we've known that they've had a lot of skill. They made a roster change and they're 14-2 since then. I don't know exactly what it was, but I also don't necessarily need to. I know that they had a lineup of 3 players where if one, like it just took a little bit of calming down, and so if one roster change led to this many wins, I think that means
Well-
that they started to figure something out with that speed.
It wasn't run roster change. Remember, they had a total rebuild because wasn't it Shock that we were following with? Or no, that's Prospect. Never
No,
mind. That's
Prospect.
Prospect with Sparks. We were.
Yeah,
my bad,
Shock
my
was
bad.
with Lilo, Enigma, Yagi, and another player.
And then they traded Lilo to Minty Fresh, right?
Yeah, for someone else who
Lilo's on my team.
is. So Irosa is
Oh, to
on
Yig. Okay.
Shock,
Yeah.
obviously, as he's talking in chat. So Shock is Enigma, Yagi, Irosa, and then another person.
I like that Irosa typed out traded Lilo to Yig for Irosa.
Yeah,
Like,
not
it's a
even just
third
for me,
person.
Yeah, that's
Got a
hilarious.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic over here.
Yeah. Real. But I
Oh my
do I wanted to give them a shout out because 14-2 is nothing to bat an eye at, right? That is crazy. So if they're starting to figure it out, like now is the time to do that. It's kind of like the Sparks how we were talking about. They were 17-3 and they were going nuts, and they were like, if they can keep this up through playoffs, how can we pick anybody else? 14-2 is 1-3-1 away from that. If they get a 4-0, they're 18-2, and then I mean, how do you not talk about that team as a potential favorite if they're 18-2 going into the playoffs? You know?
Imagine struggling in the beginning for your lower tiers, making a couple changes in a Prospect and Shally, and now both of them are potential championship contenders.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like that is the most you can ask out of a free agency move by far.
For what it's worth, I'm getting word from one of the Strawberries players that they 3-1 Penny Patrol last time that they played, and they swept them in preseason. I don't know if those are the same rosters. I don't know if there have been changes.
We swept them in preseason.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the 3-1 in regular season, if you want to talk about it more. But
Imagine
Win was
pulling
the
up a
3-1.
preseason.
Yeah.
It was the 3-1. Like that.
We'll
that's my question.
ignore the
Oh,
second part.
buddy.
Listen, I'm just reading. Don't
No,
shoot the messenger.
all right.
I got my people
no.
sending me the info.
But hold on. Since we've got MV or not, I almost jumped the gun there. Since we've got our best team and our dark horses picked, I think it's only fitting that we do talk about at some point our MVP conversation here.
Mhm.
Like this for me, I think is probably the most runaway discussion that I've
Really?
seen. Yeah,
Interesting.
dude, are you kidding me?
I
The
completely disagree. I think
the
it's really,
Chally
really
player
close.
that I've heard more complaints about people being like, "Oh, he should have been in Rival. He shouldn't have been in Chally. Why is he here?" Blah blah blah.
The
Like,
fact that I have no idea who you're gonna say it tells me that
Boss-
it's not
boss,
as
give me a
runaway
name.
as you think it is.
It's
And
Yeah.
Dates.
before you give me an, sorry, go ahead. What's the name?
it's dates. It's not even close.
Okay, whatever. I
The
mean,
amount.
if you want to say
the
it's not
amount of
close,
play-
but someone else is
No,
about to break the
dude.
record for MVPs in the entire tier, like
That's
It's-
fine,
I
but
think
like the
it's an
amount of
argument.
players I've seen that are like, dude, he should not be in
Best
Chally.
player
He should
is
have been
not
in
most
Rival. He should be double. People are saying that he should be double promoted to vet, and they're not
mean,
even
that's
batting an
dope.
eye about it.
I mean, yeah, there's people double promoted to vet every single season. Like this player you're talking about is having an incredible season, but to
Nah,
say it's a
he's
runaway,
that man. He's that guy.
skill wise, that may be true, but like most valuable to me means winning the most games for your team. And
Nah, I know
not-
I'm right because K-Flip
hold on.
agreed with me.
so K-Flip also. Never mind.
oh,
So I played with K-Flip yesterday. But my point is that I mean, I just don't think it's a runaway. I think that's a totally valid pick, but I think that it is a disservice to a number of the other players in this tier to say that it's a runaway.
Well, who's your pick then?
My pick is Levi Bullrush. I mean, they're about to break the all-time MVP record in the tier. Like, if you had the most points on your team for more wins than anyone else, like, sure, Dates is having a great season, but there's 20 MVPs. That's awesome. That's a ton of MVPs. Levi has 6 more and has the same number of wins. So, just looking at the actual numbers, Levi was on top of the leaderboard for more wins. Their team has won the same number of games, and Levi was the reason more frequently. No, their statistical numbers aren't as great, but that's also arguably because their teammates statistically aren't as good. And
I mean,
if
their
you
statistical numbers aren't that far off either.
well, those ones aren't, but if you look at who's on their teams, you have Slice Baby, right? Everyone knows they're a powerhouse, but you have Dates at that 103 RPV, unbelievable number, by the way. No shade in that direction. Then you have Cujo at a 66, Gambro at a 58, Cowtooth at a 57. Right? But if you look at that what team? That Abyss team, right? Levi has those 30, that 85, and then you got a 67 and a 60. Right? So I think that they're just a slight step below, whereas the producing of statistics isn't there on that team, and Levi is on top of the leaderboard 2/3 of the times that they win. Like, I can't. He's just the reason every time.
Okay. Tech. Who are you picking, my man?
First
Mr.
off,
Shelley
that
himself.
3-1 was September 20th. Match
All
day
right, listen.
Oh,
Don't shoot me, man. Don't
jeez.
shoot me, man. Talk to that
Joe,
strawberry screen.
jeez.
Talk to that strawberry screen.
So the preseason game was actually only like a week before. So
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh,
Valid. Maybe we
man.
can
No.
disregard that argument.
no, it's fine. It's honestly, it's still a fine argument. Like, whatever. I'm gonna throw out like a crazy name here, and honestly, I saw it a couple times in chat too, which doesn't really surprise me. But Kami, played for 4 different teams this season. They were a free agent for quite a while in the beginning of the season. Did a lot of subbing. Currently playing for Breadsticks.
They just
And-
got 4-0'd though.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
I
Yeah.
think the Kami was only a free agent at the beginning for so long because I'm pretty sure they're fairly expensive for Chally. But I think they were able to find a team that was able to fit them under cap.
Tech, my Charlie player, has a response to you, which said they were 11-1 when they 3-1'd them. What are you gonna say
Oh,
back, huh?
What is
buddy.
Listen,
Tell
just
him
keep
Granny
going,
Smith
just keep
apples are
going.
overrated.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
You'll
goodness.
know what that means.
God.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, go ahead, boss. This was you.
No. I didn't have anything else to put in. We've kind of wrapped things up in terms of MVP selection. We've already talked about Dark Horse, some of the weird things going on right now with the playoff predictions and with where everything stands. I do have an off subject matter that I want to point out before we end the stream, but
Before
I
you
just
get
want to
there.
ask.
Before you get
Oh,
there,
That's what I was
don't
going
know
to say. If you
whether
guys have one other last thing for this,
don't know whether this leak is true or not, but
There's no way it's true.
Kami is getting traded to Starfish, according to Ari in chat.
And Iwu. But Iwu said, I don't know. We'll see.
I think it'd be an incredible trade, but I'm going to have to wait and see before I make any judgment calls on that. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about for Chally before I make an announcement in regards to something outside of just main RSC gameplay?
My wrap-up statement is just that there's more storylines in this challenger tier than I've ever seen in any other tier ever in RSC. And I think that's really cool and a really positive thing for the league.
Fair enough. Tech, you said you didn't have anything else?
Not about Chally, no.
Okay. I just want to, so I'm going to put out there, recently put on by Quan, something he's been reaching out and making some contacts with some people to get all lined up and everything. He is working on a charity event for a Rocket League tournament for Noli to raise money and donate to the Boy Scouts troop that he worked with for a long time. I do know right now, specifically, it should be December 2nd. We haven't exactly hammered out a perfect time. I believe we're looking at between 2 and 3 p.m.
It was 3 p.m.
It
we
is
decided on.
3 p.m.
Eastern.
It will,
Eastern, yes.
Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern.
yes,
December
3 p.m.
2nd.
Eastern. It's going to be a pretty big event because there's going to be multiple tiers, like 2 tiers for this tournament. And we're trying to get a lot of ground for people, not just in RSC, but people out of RSC. I know Dyer's going to be working on a graphic here shortly to get some stuff hammered out, and we'll once we get some of that like actually made and prepped and good to go, I'll make sure I put it in the PreJump server as well so everybody can see it. But obviously there will probably be an announcement at some point in the 3 server. I know somebody telling me in the meeting the last time we were kind of hammering out some details, telling me we had to talk about it on the podcast, so I want to make sure we talked about it and got it out there. HUD, I did my job. I talked about the important thing.
Job. It's going to be awesome, and it could not be for a better, like the opportunity could not be better for everybody involved. So it is definitely something to look forward to, and there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be putting a lot of work into it. So for sure, keep an eye out.
Well, I think the fact that all the proceeds are going to his Boy Scout troop, the one that he specifically was working with, is not only like incredible in remembrance for Noli, but it's an incredible like push forward to say, hey, we're going to support one of our own, and we're going to keep supporting the Boy Scout troop where he was. And while it doesn't replace what he was, it's still a good like, hey, people still care about you kind of push forward, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it should be a wonderful event for all parties involved. Very excited to continue to get like details hammered out, like you said. And I know right now we're in the stage where we're trying to get some more just concrete stuff from Null's family, so that way we can make sure everything is lined up to be as good as we can possibly be. And then we made sure that we gave ourselves a very, very long window to run up to this event so we can do it right. And with about a month to go now, it's definitely, as it comes up on the horizon, we're looking forward to it.
So, outside of that, fellas, I didn't have anything else for the podcast. If you guys have anything else now's your chance. Otherwise, we'll get to wrapping things up.
What's stream games looking like for this week there, Mr. Boss?
My man, we have squat for stream games this
Well, we
week.
should have playoffs coming up pretty soon, shouldn't we?
We do.
Ish.
So on Monday, we have a rival matchup between the Werewolves and the Cursed. That'll be produced by Mr. HUD himself. And right now, we've only got one caster on docket with Cicero, but I'm really excited to see him casting again.
That should be crazy. Werewolves are that 18-2 in their last 20 team against Cursed, who's 33-19. But they're 10-10 in their last 20.
Why? I know it's 11:30, but dude, that Abyss and that Slice Baby matchup, they need to figure out a way to play that on stream. That is
basically
incredible.
a preview of a playoff matchup.
Mm-hmm. And then Wednesday, it'll be the AMI finals at the 10:50 slot, and the 11:30 slot is also still open.
Playoff time.
Playoff time. Rob, any last statements for the podcast for the week?
Shout out Garden. Woo woo woo. I think calling it right now, not talking about it yet, but I think the Garden is taking home rival, Charlie, and Master. That's all. End it with a call out. Clip it, play it back when we win it all. Everyone's gonna clip it, hoping they can send it to me when these 3 teams lose. These 3 teams just won't lose. So yeah, I'm excited to. I mean, no one's gonna send it to me after I'm right, so that sucks. But like, I wish they would.
You'll have it.
You'll have
it.
Yeah.
Tech, any final statements for the podcast?
Only thing I'm going to say is, AMI prospect, your guys' playoff start Monday. Sorry we didn't talk about you guys, but just want to say good luck.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, my only call out. Thank you, HUD, for producing. I really love not hosting and producing. I'm glad to have you here.
Anything to let you play Rocket League while the podcast is going on, boss?
Yeah, right.
I've been playing 2K actually for a hot minute now.
Anything to let you play 2K while the podcast is going on, boss?
You betcha, buddy. Well, outside of that, this has been week, holy cow, 25. Wrapping up
Already.
6 months of RSC podcasting.
That's crazy.
Outside of that, everybody, my name is Bas Radala. I've had Rob and TechFour joining me on the desk here tonight, and HUD producing that bottom right, nice sleek corner that we've got going on here. But for everybody else, you have a good night. Take it easy.